Well, hello, welcome to Embrace Live, and Happy New Year. This is the first one back after the festive celebrations. Hope everybody's doing well and had a good Christmas break, and into the new year, and welcome to January and everything else like that. Really, we're looking forward to the year ahead. I'm excited about what we've got in store for Embrace Live. Let me just introduce myself. So my name is Dave Dixon. I have the pleasure of and absolute honour of serving over at Embrace Church, which is in Darlington. And so, it's great to be part of the team over there, and I'm really pleased tonight that we are joined by Alan Fraser, who's the senior pastor of Embrace Church in Darlington, as our guest tonight. I'm really excited, actually, because looking forward, we have got guests lined up every week now until the end of March. And if I just kind of give you a little, flavour of who we got coming up, these are the wonderful people, or just some of them actually, who've agreed, and we've got dates nailed in the diary for. Really looking forward to, chatting with each of them about their stories, about how they're involved in ministry in different ways and kind of living out the gospel, and really impacting their homes, their communities, and different areas. There really are some fantastic people in there, and many more besides that are not on that picture. Tony is in the top left. Tony Granger's absolutely amazing individual. I've known Tony for many years now. He's absolutely brilliant, and he was due to be our last show before Christmas, but unfortunately circumstances kind of just dictated that we had to kind of cancel that quite last minute. But Tony has agreed. He said, look, I really want to do this, and so we just need to nail him down to a date now. So like I say, just stay tuned. He will be featuring. But like I say, these are good friends of mine from all over different kind of the country, and again, what they're doing in not just in the UK and beyond, which is great. And like I said, they've got very varied kind of roles, and really, I just want to encourage you now, for certainly until the end of March and beyond, all being well, tune in each Wednesday night at 8 p.m. where we do this live stream. And, again, what I want to do is really encourage you to, if you can, tune in live. I know a lot of people, tune in and catch up a little bit later on if they can't make it live each Wednesday night, and really get a lot out of that. And, thank you for your feedback and getting in touch. But, if you can, try and tune in live, because what we want to do is to, make these live streams very much live, an interactive session. We want to hear from you. And so, I can see, people have joined us online already, which is great, and are kind of posting just to say hello. So, Happy New Year to Bill and Sue, two wonderful people that also come along to Embrace Church in Darlington, which is brilliant. We think they're amazing. But I'm really pleased as well that actually we go further than Embrace Church in Darlington, which is great. We want to kind of just really highlight what's happening in the kingdom across the area. And I say this, and I make a point of saying it each time, and so true. There is only one church really, and that's God's church, His bride, with a capital C. And we just live out our different flavours in different settings. And as long as it's a Bible, truth to the Bible, Bible based, then again, it's how we dress that up really, just to kind of and live that out, how to kind of make contact with each other, and obviously within that, those in church and those outside of the church, maybe don't know Jesus. So if you're stumbling across this live stream, as always, and you don't know Jesus, look, we'd love to talk more about that, and just to kind of tell you a bit of our story about how Jesus has made a huge impact on our lives, how we've kind of came to the decision to follow him and dedicate our lives to following him, and how he's changed us, okay, and how he's that continual process of transformation. Listen, we're not perfect. Don't let us give you the wrong impression. I'm certainly not perfect, and we never will be perfect until we're in heaven and we're totally restored to God's original design for us. But again, we want to just kind of talk to you, in a non-heavy kind of way, just to kind of share a little bit of our stories with you. So if you don't know Jesus and you want to get in touch, please just drop us a message, however you want to do that, on one of our channels, and we'll show our contact details a little bit later. We'd love to chat more with you. So, we've been doing actually for quite a while now. I'm trying to think about how many episodes we've done. I want to say it's around about 24, could even be up to 25 episodes. And we started this kind of July time last year. And with a few kind of breaks in between for holidays and things like that. Like I said, we've been doing it most Wednesday nights, and it was really about an opportunity to connect during the week. On Hump Day, Wednesday is often known as Hump Day. As we kind of get to the point where we start looking forward to the weekend, and just to kind of get together and share some stuff. And quite a number of you have said, how much you appreciate it, and it's great to kind of find out different, people's stories, like you say, and what's happening in their lives. I just want to pause and just say hi, Irene. Thank you for joining us tonight from Mission Stockton, which is brilliant. Really appreciate it. And so, just to encourage you, if you are joining us, and even if it's your first time, that's great. Thank you. Just pop us a little kind of message on there, and we'd love to, kind of respond to them. When we invite Alan in a moment, I tell you what, let's go over to Alan now, just to kind of just give him a quick hello. Hi, Alan. Are you well?
All good. All good.
He's there. He's prompt. He's smiling. He's good. So Alan's, like I say, he's our guest tonight as a senior pastor at Embrace Church, and we're looking forward to. And listen, we want to make this an interactive session. We want to grill Alan. All right. So listen, I want to encourage you tonight, to kind of feel free at any point to post your questions, and we'll pop them on the screen, and so Alan and I can kind of respond to them. So like we said, that's the advantage of tuning in live. If you are catching up, then if you want to chat about anything that's kind of raised in here, then obviously please do feel free to drop us a message, and we'd love to respond to that as well. Okay, so this series, like I said, we're up to around about 25 episodes to date. We've looked at different people's, I've mentioned stories, and how they've kind of come to that decision to commit their lives to following Jesus, and the impact that that's had, and how it's changed their lives, and that's always a working progress, as we kind of go through. But then we've kind of spent time looking at, and chatting with some people who lead worship, which often means in a church circle about leading the music, for example, when churches come together and sing as part of their worship lifestyle. And so I've got some more worship buddies lined up to have a chat with them. Looking forward to in a few weeks' time to a good friend of mine, a long-term friend, really good buddy, Steve Whitehouse, joining us. He's a quality guy, so make sure that you please tune in for him as well. Just do me a favour, set your reminders, set your calendars, Wednesdays, 8 o'clock, and tune in via live Embrace Church Facebook page like you have done. And we'll try our best to kind of share that as well. Really be helpful if you don't mind sharing it with your friends and family online as well. And so we've done this series, actually, I've called it Leaders Series, and this has been running for most of those episodes, like we say, that we've done. And, it's really about people, how they are, leading their lives, but leading often ministries or heavily involved in ministries. What do I mean by that? Living it out, of being called, they feel called by God and gifted by God to go out, as the Bible says, to the ends of the earth, whether that may be in your local community, abroad, wherever, and living it out, how, God has called them to go and represent Jesus in the community, at work, wherever that may be, and gifted them, especially to be able to do that. All right, and like I say, it's always fascinating to hear people's stories, and that's one of the big parts of why we do this. This is great. So, like you say, I'll call this Leaders. So what I want to do is I want to kind of do the little Leaders intro video. She's going to lead us into that, and then Alan will join us on screen. And we're just going to basically have a nice informal chat, up until we'll cut off at 9 o'clock. And like I say, please feel free to comment and question, and we can put those on screen as well as we kind of go through. All right, so let's run this Leaders intro video, and then Alan will join us on screen as well. Here we go. And here we are. There we go, Alan. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah, you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. So I know we had a little bit of a kind of last minute tweak in the program, and you stepped in quite late on, which is great. Thank you, appreciate you for doing
No,
that.
all good. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, all good.
so obviously within that, you have featured on Embrace Live right in the early days. I say the early days,
Yeah,
back in episodes 1 and 2, wasn't it? It was kind of
yeah,
setting the
yeah,
scene of,
yeah,
Embrace Church. We might go over that a little bit tonight, again, because like I say, most of the time in most of the episodes we focus beyond Embrace Church. So this is not just a selling job for Embrace, but it is a fantastic church, and and it's great, and it's moving, and it's doing the stuff as part of the wider church, which is great. So we might do a little bit of a selling job as well.
yeah,
And so we might kind of talk about that. And you gave your story then as well in the early days as well. And all of these
yeah.
episodes are all available on our either on Facebook page, so people can view them if you want to go that way, or if you want to head over to our Embrace YouTube channel as well. They're all available on there as well, so you can kind of catch up and share those as you want to. So, listen, Alan, in that kind of quick leader's intro, obviously I've seen that a number of times now. In fact, I put it together and I deliberately used some of these words, in terms of leaders like shepherd, visionary, pace setter. And for me, mate, that you tick a lot of these boxes, which is great. And so I really appreciate you being part of that and your opportunity to kind of do church with you, do life with you, and we both serve obviously on the leadership team of Embrace as well, which is great. Not without its challenges at times, but if that small word COVID is a challenge for all of us, and makes life certainly interesting. And I don't want to be flippant about that because obviously it is a really serious issue. But we're going, we're keeping strong, we keep going, and thankfully God is much bigger than COVID and is on the move and is doing this stuff, isn't he? So, okay.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, Alan, why don't you just give us a couple of minutes or so of who you are, just for people maybe who have kind of joined us tonight who are not familiar with who you are. Who are you?
Okay, so 2 minutes max. Yeah.
Yeah, some
So
of that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm a Darlington lad. Lived most of my life in Darlington, in the northeast of England. Um, didn't really attend church in my younger days. Just wasn't part of my life. But my girlfriend, who then became my wife, invited me to church 26 years ago or something.
Wow.
Never thought I would be a churchgoer, but very quickly became one. Um, and church became a big part of my life. I'm married. As I said, the person who invited me was my girlfriend. We're now married, been married almost 25 years. We've got 2 children, both grown up now, a grandchild as well.
Wow. Granddad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Saying I've got a grandchild sounds all right, but then being called a granddad still kind of sounds weird.
Yeah, you don't look old enough, mate. If that's what you look,
Yeah,
if that's
yeah,
what I'm supposed to be saying
yeah,
at this point, you don't look old enough.
yeah, yeah. But it's great. We love it. So I used to be a primary school teacher. Did that for about 12 years. Done all kinds of different jobs. Used to work full time for the church. I'm not working full time for the church though at the moment. That was in the previous church.
Yeah.
But yeah, and now with you and our lovely wives, part of the leadership team at Embrace Church Darlington. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's pretty much it. And hobby wise, my wife and I are back running again, which was nice. Which is nice. Just started again this week, and a slightly out of Darlington connection here. Well, I in particular and my daughter, we are Redcar Bears Speedway fans, so that's our sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
sport of choice.
Yeah. I've noticed a few posts actually that you've put on Facebook. When you've been and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
How did you
yeah.
get into speedway then? What?
Well, my dad was, and my granddad actually were into motorcycle racing of all kinds. So
Right.
my granddad used to be, he rode at the TT, the Isle of Man. I don't know if you know anything
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I know of it. I've never done it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And my granddad and my dad were into all kinds of motorbikes. They
Wow.
were both mechanics. Both used to race a bit. So I just got took along when I was a kid to Middlesbrough Speedway, as it
Yeah.
was then, and just loved it.
Yeah.
And didn't go for years. Didn't bother for years. just decided last year to start going again. Thought I'd try it. Took my daughter along, who she'd never even heard of Speedway before this, because I'd never been while she'd been alive in
Yeah.
her life.
Wow.
So I took her last year, and she loved it. Became obsessed after one race. Is now Red Caber's biggest fan, I think. So
Wow.
so we've started going more regularly again. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Well, we did say that we want to make this an interactive kind of session, and so
yeah, yeah.
obviously, Mrs. Fraser's taken the opportunity to comment already and jump on, and just so if you can see that, she's obviously confirming that you're now both absolutely Speedway mad.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you know? I've never, I know of Speedway. I've never actually been. I've got friends who are fans as well, and at one point, I'd love to tag along and just to kind of experience
yeah,
the night,
yeah.
and just to see what it's like. I'm sure it would be amazing.
It's not a sport you can enjoy as much on TV. When you watch it on TV, you don't appreciate the speed and the
Yeah.
bravery of the riders,
Yeah.
and there's just the smell and the sound. You just
Yeah.
don't get it on TV. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
recommend it to anyone.
yeah,
Come
and
to
hello to
church,
Philip.
and after that, come to Speedway.
Yeah, yeah. Hello to Philip as well, as joined us, and he's clearly, supporting it, up the Bears. As
Yeah.
I'm taking, that was the team, wasn't it? Is it Red
Mega
Bears?
Bears.
Did you say?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
brilliant. So, just can you give us a potted history, like you say, just a brief kind of history of Embrace Church? How did it come about, and where is it at the moment?
Yeah.
What's happening? Just because obviously I'm conscious it's
Okay.
been a while, and some people may not be
Yeah.
familiar.
So it's actually almost 5 years old. It's 5 years old in March, which in church terms is probably a little bit like a human being, actually.
Yeah.
5 is still very young for a human. It's actually, in many ways, still very young for a church, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's a similar kind of journey. So prior to that, as I said, prior to that, I was on full-time staff at quite a large church. But for many years, had just felt called to begin something off the ground, really, from the ground, start something afresh.
Yeah.
And my wife had a very similar sort of vision, very similar sort of calling. And it was one of those things, Dave, where sooner or later we had to do it. We felt, and I know you always like to pick us up when we use religious language, and I like that. But I'll use this, and if anyone wants to question us on it, that's fine. We both felt kind of called, really, to do it, called by God, like it was something God had put in us, a seed.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, you have to either do it or not do it. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
as simple as that.
Got a choice.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could have stayed in the church I was at in a very successful role, if you like, in a very successful church. In some ways, quite a large church, and just probably stayed there for the rest of my life. On good money and enjoying the church thing.
Yeah.
But there was something in us both where we thought we were called to start something from the ground up, really. So we stepped out from where we were, which there was some kind of human gambles in that. What seemed, human beings were saying, but you're giving up your job, and this is madness. And we were like, well, it might appear madness, but if God's called us to do this, then He'll help us out. He'll help us along the way.
Yeah.
So we started. There was 18 of us on the first night. We literally had no money, no backing. We just borrowed the Wheatchief pub upstairs in Darlington, the Wheatchief pub,
Yeah.
who gave us a room for free, actually,
Fantastic.
due to a friendship a couple of people in the church had. And we just thought, right, let's see who turns up. And, for the first 3.5 years, really, it grew and grew and grew. And I always like to, being a bit of a mathematician, I always like to put our growth in terms of percentage because it sounds so much more impressive. But we grew by about 250%,
Wow.
We grew from about 18 people to about 50, I suppose. Then COVID hit, and I don't think I've yet met a church leader who hasn't said their church hasn't been hit. I think every church person I know
Yeah.
has said to one degree or another, some more so than others, that church attendance and so on, hasn't yet reached what it was before COVID.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You
That's the
notice,
reality, isn't
and
it?
you notice, Dave, we're in that boat.
Mm.
And again, you can look at things from human eyes, and the human eye would say church has taken a real hit.
Mm.
I prefer to take the godly, the godly perspective, which is always more optimistic than human eye,
Yeah.
and just think, well, I don't know what God's doing fully in this time. He's clearly doing something,
Mm.
and whatever it is will turn out to be better than what I could dream up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Absolutely.
about it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a potted history, I suppose.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, obviously, I wasn't involved in Embrace at the start when it was
Yeah,
first kind of, I certainly wasn't in those early days in the Wheat Chief.
yeah, yeah,
Although I did venture across to the Wheat Chief a few times for different things.
yeah,
Then, certainly a fantastic pub if we can highlight that business. A great
yeah,
place.
yeah, yeah.
We are
It
grateful
really
for them.
is.
But I kind of got to know Embrace yourself, and I didn't know you before. I kind of came across because you kind of put out the feelers and the request for help in terms of people to lead worship, and
Yeah,
by
yeah,
that we mean the kind of singing aspects within a
yeah,
service. And that's something I've been involved with for many years, and I was able to kind of bring a few friends as well. Great, fantastic people like Mike and Liz Connolly and others as well. To come and serve every few months, and I know from my
yeah,
journey it was a bit as kind of it was a change of season for ourselves as a family, and we were kind of in a holding kind of position in a good friend of mine's local church, and we knew we were there for a time, but it wouldn't be the final kind of step or a long term kind of thing, and it was just so clear that it was so clear every time I came across to Embrace how amazing that you and Tony were and everybody else was there, and how it just felt so relaxed. And I know that certainly continues to be one of the big values that we have as Embrace, is that it's a family, and like every family goes through their ups and downs and has their struggles, and has got those interesting characters like I'm sure we can all relate to in our own families. I know the Dixons, around there are an interesting bunch, and those are kind of related. And I put myself on the top of that tree. And so, but it was such a family, and it continues to be such a family atmosphere. And together we enjoy the good times like families do, and we lean upon each other when things are challenging. And so that I know is a key kind of value that we have as a leadership team and as a church, that we do want to have that. We are the family of God. We are brothers and sisters in Christ, and we know him, and we do lean upon each other. So I'm really thankful for the journey that we're on as Embrace Church, as a small part of the wider church of what God's doing across the area,
yes,
across the UK, across the world, and God is on the move. And I just want to kind of chuck this up because Mike Connolly's joined us as well. I just want to put up that again, he's saying it's a pleasure and honour to serve. I'm going to say not us. I'm going to serve with us. Not to serve you, but serve God and serve us with us. Sorry, as a team. So, the like amazing couple, Mike and Liz, and many others as well. That's the dangerous thing when you start mentioning names. You risk offending people because you haven't
Let's
mentioned
mention them
theirs.
all.
So hopefully, please don't be offended if I haven't mentioned you and so on. I'm so thankful that I get to do the church thing, as I call it, and life with lots of fantastic people, and not just in Embrace Church, and that's important. Just to highlight, Mike and Liz and I were at Christ Church Mission in Norton with Nathan and the team over there, and as they celebrated their 90th birthday. In that building, or not actually in that building, but as a church, because they moved around and they settled on a building and they've been in there for a long time now. But it was great to be able to kind of play a part in there and celebrate their heritage and what God's been doing for many, many years through there. And it's exciting to look forward. So here we are. We're in January, and part of your role, and you're brilliant at this. You're certainly a lot better than I am, and is kind of part of your leadership role is to pull together the kind of series of talks that we're going to do. how do you do that? How do you kind of get those ideas just out of interest? They are quality. Don't take
Yeah,
this as that
no,
I'm kind of questioning
no,
your,
no,
because we do make a
no.
team decision, but you lead on it.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think again, I don't want to sound too like religious, right?
Yeah,
So keep pulling me up on that if anyone wants to and ask a question, that's fine. But I think as part of being part of a church, God gives people different gifts,
yeah,
and I think like you might hear something or see something, and that might spark off a song in you, or a song lyric in
yeah,
you, or some bars and beats. I'm not really sure what I'm talking about, but do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Because that's the way you're made
yeah,
and the way you're gifted. And for me, it's like I can hear a sentence, maybe a sentence I heard last March, for
mm,
example, and it will just trigger something off in me that starts thinking about, oh, that would make a good talk,
yeah,
or that would make a good series of talks, even.
yeah,
Or I can even, and sometimes it is just kind of recycling ideas. Sometimes, like, or nicking ideas is the polite
yeah,
way of
yeah.
saying
That's
it.
all right. Yeah,
But it's I don't mean just lifting it from something else, but I saw something once on an advert for a supermarket, and they used some slogan, right? And I just remember thinking, like, it just triggered off a whole series of, one slogan led to another in my mind, which led to
yeah,
another, which led to another. And I thought they would make great talks actually
yeah,
in church. Just so it's just like, one, I think it's just the way I'm wired. It's just how my brain thinks. I'm always thinking, what would make a good talk? What would make a good series?
yeah,
And I don't think I have many original thoughts. I think my thoughts are triggered from something else. I don't think I ever just think, let's do that. I think I always hear something. And like I say, it can be 8, 9, 10, 16, 18 months maybe before we
mm,
actually get round to doing that series of talks.
yeah,
Um, but it triggers something in me that I then start thinking about. And then it might become some original thought from me. But the
yeah,
original idea tends to come from something I hear or see, and
yeah,
like I say, it could be a supermarket jingle. It's not always something. It's rarely something super spiritual.
yeah,
And just to give you another example, I once heard someone say, well, I can say who it was. Hannah Jackson, actually, a while ago. I mean, I'm talking almost a year ago. Said something like, she said something and said, "Isn't that a very Jesus thing to do?"
mm,
And straight away, something in my head just went, "That would make a great series." Looking at, isn't that a very Jesus thing to say, or isn't that a very Jesus thing? And then actually, I've incorporated that into the year ahead.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
just so, yeah. So just like that, it just something just sparks off in me.
yeah. That's
You know,
amazing. Like you say, I mean, you've highlighted there, which is absolutely true. We're all gifted in different ways. We've all got a part to play, haven't we? And
yeah,
God has gifted us for different seasons, for different areas that we serve in, and to use and bring glory to Him. In whatever the way that may be. And I love music, and like you're right, it does spark off. Kind of song lyrics. I know Philip is a good friend of ours, and he's posting on here. He's got a question for you, which I'll post on screen in a moment.
okay,
But I know he's very much influenced by songs. He likes to make a good song reference in his talks and things like that. But I think it is a real gift to be able to craft a series and a kind of a plan of talks across a 12-month period, for example, which is what we tend to do.
yeah,
And it's you kind of getting that balance as well. So I'm excited about the series of talks that we've got planned for the coming year. I like the series of looking at a particular book of the Bible, and it's good to do that and dig into that, and
yeah,
what was saying then and how it applies now, and everything else, and what's God doing through that. And then like alongside that is isn't that such a Jesus thing to do? What would Jesus kind of do in
yeah.
that situation? Sorry, yeah, you were going to say something? Yeah,
No, I was going to say, Dave, I think what you've said there is really important, actually. That it's good to do themes, right? It's good to do something that, like, I'm just being honest. It might sound quite catchy, like, isn't that a Jesus? What a Jesus thing to say, or what
Yeah.
Jesus thing to do, and all that. But I think in every year, I think it's important to study in depth at least one book of the Bible,
Yeah.
because the danger of doing themes is that we choose the bits we like,
Mm, mm,
and that's fine. But the strength of doing, like last year we did 1 Corinthians, was sometimes we tackle bits we're not so comfortable with,
yeah.
but if it's in the Bible, we should still be looking at them.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And I think, like last year, it just seemed right to do 1 Corinthians as a series because of the whole church and culture colliding thing, whatever we
Yeah.
called it, wasn't it? Where
Yeah. It
church
was.
and
Yeah.
culture collide. It just seemed a good time to do it with everything that was going on in the world, and this year I know, like, the book was sort of what the main part of the Bible that we're looking at in terms of a book of the Bible is Romans, and
Mm,
again it it just I can't say it felt right because it's not a feeling.
mm,
It's more a sense. It just sensed like, as a church, it's a good time for us to now be looking at what God said to the Christians in Rome,
yeah.
because somehow what He said to them 2,000 years ago somehow is relevant to us today.
Mm,
In Darlington, 2,000 years later.
absolutely.
So even that, I get a sense of which book we should be looking at.
Mm,
But it's important to do a book and not just the bits we like.
yeah. And that's what I love about it as well. Because like you say, we don't just cherry pick. Yeah. The
Yeah.
bits that we like. We like to say the challenging aspects, and I know that we've and continue to do. Tackle those difficult issues, and and I know in the past we've kind of just turned Sundays over to big questions. We've kind of called it that, and asked for people to say, well, actually, what are the big questions in life, and what does the Bible say about that? I know we've kind of had different questions in there. I'm smirking and laughing because, in all honesty, in some ways, not that we just lift stuff, like I say, and regurgitate stuff. We might be inspired by things that we read and see on, maybe on YouTube, etc. But in some ways, actually, talking about books of the Bible and things like that. Not that I'm saying that's easier, but when you get a really tough topic, it's like, wow, it really, having being people that we are, kind of preparing talks like that, it really, really does take some time and effort, and inevitably God does the stuff with you first, and really I find it really challenging. Is that actually,
Yeah.
what's my perception of, what's my understanding of, and God's challenged me on that and so on, which is great. Philip's jumped on here and is, again, as always, the pearls of wisdom are flowing from Mr. Cartmail. But might not be written by us or or to us, but it's definitely written for us. Absolutely. So, with that in mind, it's fair to say, and we said that we won't do too much of a selling job, but, we've got some really good, themes, books of the Bible. We mentioned Romans and other kind of themes throughout the year, and we really welcome you to come and join us and visit us at Embrace. And like you said, we won't hold you to anything. Just because you turn up once and have a cup of coffee with us doesn't mean you're instantly a member. But if you're happy, if you want to come and check us out. If you're involved in your own local church, of course, we want to support you and want you to stay there and things. But if you want, maybe you're looking and feel like God's calling you somewhere else, and or you just want to come and visit us and see what we're like, just out of curiosity, then you'd be more than welcome. It'd be lovely to see you. So, one of the things that obviously at January a lot of people do. So thinking about the kind of talks that we've got planned, and I'm going to reference where we were last Sunday, just gone. January, we've all enjoyed maybe the festive period with a little bit of excess kind of stuff, where we get to January and people start making promises, resolutions to be a new, improved side of things, and it's always a good point, at the beginning of a year to, as a church, to kind of almost have what we call almost a vision Sunday. It's like, where are we going to go? And I know that, it's a pretty big question by Philip, and thank you for posting this, but I'll put it on screen, just to kind of share our heart and vision for Embrace in 2022. That's a huge question. And I don't know whether you want to respond to that, maybe not in full, but in part, or some of those kind of things, or maybe have a bit more of a think about, maybe come back to it.
I can give a quickish response
Yeah,
now if you want.
yeah, please,
Yeah.
yeah,
So a heart response. I think I'm going to go back to the whole thing of when God puts something in you, and you see what God put in me and Tony, my wife, back to launch Embrace. See, I don't think we've seen the fullness of that yet.
yeah,
So in one sense, the vision is what it's in one sense it's what it's always been because we haven't seen the fullness of that yet.
yeah,
So I think we wanted to see a number of churches, any number of churches actually. There's not a limit to that around Darlington that people can. And when I say the word church, I'm using this in a very specific way here about where they might meet on a Sunday morning. Now, Dave, and I know, and most people watching will know that really the church isn't the building;
yeah,
it's the
absolutely,
people.
yeah,
But the church does gather, and the heart was always to have multiple congregations or sites, whatever you want to call it. It could be at different days and times of the week, whatever suits that context. It doesn't have to be a Sunday morning. It's not set in stone that it
yeah,
has to be a Sunday morning. I've always felt something about people thinking like they've got a church just around the corner. It's just around the corner, our church. Oh, we meet just around the corner.
yeah,
Wherever you might live, the church is kind of just around the corner. And I've always felt, as a Tony, God put something in us about multiple sites, multiple congregations. They may come together from time, okay, once a month or once every school term or whatever for a bigger thing. But I've always sensed that. I've always felt it's a place where we give people opportunity. People can step out, take a risk with finding out what gifts God has given them. And it's okay to be wrong or okay to make a mistake.
yeah,
Where people do feel part of that church family. We talk about family a lot, where we can be that family, and where we have a strong edge to want to keep inviting others who aren't part of the family to join the family.
yeah,
you know, so I'm always a little bit nervous when a church has a very narrow kind of vision in one sense, because I kind of think, the Bible tells us really what church is. It's not rocket science. We don't have to dream something up.
yeah,
You know, so all the kind of things you would expect to see in a church, we want to see them in our church.
yeah.
They may be done in a particular way, and I think you used the word a flavour,
I
Dave.
do,
Don't you?
yeah, yeah,
Different churches have different flavours of the same drink in a way, if you like. Some people prefer Yorkshire tea, and some people prefer Earl Grey, but it's still tea. So people might, find our flavour to their taste or not, as the case may be.
yeah,
But that kind of thing about, I want to see everyone growing in their faith,
yeah,
and telling others and get people getting to know Jesus. But I've always had this thing about multiple sites
yeah,
from day one. Yeah.
yeah.
So I
Brilliant.
feel, we'll step out in that. And just for me, it's about people being able to be the best version of themselves, really. Not putting on a Sunday best, but and being something very different the rest of the week, but just being who they are, but being the best version of who they are. And we can only be the best version of who we are if we're, walking that walk with Jesus, I would
Absolutely.
say.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks. Yeah, I
Something
mean,
like
thank you. I
that.
mean, it's a big question, and I think you've just kind of explained, a really good answer. You said a little bit, obviously I'm sure we could go on for so much more, but that's a really good kind of, summary of what, heart for Brace going forward. We're thankful for our journey so far, but we're excited about what, God's doing. And I'm sure
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
it is for his church, like you say, with a capital C in general, and those different flavours like we referred to, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's brilliant. And so just thinking back to the Sunday just gone, like I said, our first service back, first gathering back together as a church, in 2022, and it was a great kind of Vision Sunday kind of, and you led the talk brilliantly as always, Alan. It makes me sick really. Just how good you are. So, no, you are brilliant, and so it was about talking in particular, and this is why you were we kind of had a brief chat and you came on and agreed to kind of do this. It's talking about what we deemed or what you deemed a radiant church. That radiant church. Are you able to kind of give us a summary of some of the areas then of what the Bible says about a church, a radiant church? I love that phrase as well. By
Yeah.
the way, I must admit that radiant church has been going round and round my head ever since.
Yeah. I'd like to say I invented the phrase, but again, I nicked it. But I nicked it from a good source. I nicked it from the Bible, so that's
That is a good
allowed, isn't it?
source. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
source.
If Christians can't nick from the Bible, we're in trouble. Yeah, I've actually got the Bible verse here. I was thinking I might be asked about this verse.
Yeah,
So and again, if people want to sort of quiz us on this verse later on, let's send us a message, whatever, that's fine. But there's a book in the New Testament. Well, it's a letter, really. Actually, it's a letter that Paul wrote, not Paul Saxton, but the Apostle Paul.
another good friend of ours.
I think Paul's watching tonight, actually. So he wrote a letter to some Christians in Ephesus, right, a city. And he said this: Christ, which is Jesus, loved the church and gave himself up for her being the church, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, which is the Bible and Jesus himself, and to present her to himself as a radiant church. Then it says, the church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. And I think, Dave, you were talking earlier that none of us are perfect.
That's right.
And because we are the church, therefore, you're right, the church isn't perfect either. So that vision that Paul writes about there is what the church will eventually look like. When we are all perfect in heaven, the church will be fully radiant. It won't have any faults. But whilst me and you are part of the church, Dave, it does have faults.
Absolutely does. Yeah.
It just needs us to. That's all it needs to make it faulty. Never mind anyone else. But Jesus is promising to build his church. And I read something this morning, actually, by Mike Pilavachi, who leads a big church in London somewhere, I think, who said, when God calls you to something, he's already factored in our own stupidity.
I love
And
it.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's like God knew my stupidity when calling us to church leadership. Do you know what I mean? It's like the church isn't going to fail because I'm stupid sometimes. He already knew that. So God does the building of the church, really. But as with 99% of the Bible, I would say, he calls us to work with him. So he's the grand designer, but he lets us, he gives us the privilege of joining in with some of the work, really.
Yeah.
And so, without going into a million Bible verses, there are obviously, I think, some common factors, I would say, that helps to make a church radiant.
Yeah.
Not perfectly radiant. So if I whiz through some of these, I
please.
think first and foremost, it's about God first. Everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
And I love going to church. When I became a Christian, I had no church background. And I was thinking about this last night, lying in bed, actually. I think God gave me a real love for the church. I don't say that with any arrogance or anything like that, because there's things he hasn't given me, or he's given me in smaller measure. But I think one of the things he's given me is a real love for it. I instantly, literally the second I became a Christian, I just thought, well, if this is true, if I'm a Christian, I'm going to throw myself into his church, because the Bible's clear it's his church. I'm just like, right, I'm going to give it 100%. But yeah, so when I go to church, when anyone goes to church, I hope they find friends there and family there, and they have a nice cup of coffee there and they enjoy the worship, and all of that, right? But actually, we're there for God first.
Yeah.
So even if someone one week thought, it wasn't my favourite songs in the worship, or the preacher wasn't that good, it shouldn't matter that much, because actually we're not there to get entertained by the preacher, or let's
Absolutely.
hope my favourite songs get picked. We're there for God first.
Yeah.
And it might sound obvious to given that Embrace is a Christian church, but it is the God of the Bible as well. It's not a God of our invention. It's not the God we might like him to be like, because as we've already said, sometimes the Bible has some challenging things in it. But actually, it is the God of the Bible, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That's that church with that God has a good chance of becoming a radiant church.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Bible is central to us, to a radiant church, and other books can be helpful. Other books can be useful, but when a book contradicts the Bible, we put the Bible first.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we've said, it should be a place of worship. Once I think people realise what Jesus has done for them, it's almost impossible to not worship.
Mm.
And worship can look very different for different people. I don't think one's
Right.
better than the other. There's something in the Bible where it says, "Be still and know God."
Yeah.
You can be still in worship, or you can be extravagantly jumping about like a nutcase in worship.
Yeah.
And as long as that's you just being authentic in worship, that's part of the radiant church.
Yeah.
But it should be a place of authentic love and worship. It's not just singing songs, even if those songs have great lyrics. It's meaning them, and it's doing it out of awe and thanks to God.
Mm.
Church should be a gathered people. We're saved individually and wonderfully. Jesus did something for me, and I can't pass that faith on to anyone else. They have to find that truth for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
once
Absolutely.
people find that truth, we're meant to be together. We're meant to be a church family. We're God's daughters and sons. So we're brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
In the Old Testament, God called a people to himself. In the New Testament, God's called a people
Mm.
to be together. My Christianity shouldn't be private. It's personal, but it shouldn't be private. It should be lived out with you, Dave, and
Yeah.
it should be lived out with Sue and Bill. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's important. We're a heavenly family. We talked a bit about that. We're not just a family, but the one thing we should have in common more than everything else is our love for Jesus
Yeah.
and the fact we are saved by Jesus. So we might have, I don't know if we have, Dave, it's just an example. We might have massively different politics, or I might support a good football team and yours isn't so good, right? Whatever,
Yeah.
right? But above all that, we can actually be a little bit divided on that, but we are more united in our heavenly family through
Yeah.
Jesus than the
Yeah.
things that might divide us. In one sense, I couldn't care less what someone's politics is, because I'm united to them on something bigger than politics. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, there's this strange biblical word called discipleship. And what that is, that should be part of a church where we are helping each other to live the Christian life better and to be more like Jesus. Now, we do that badly.
Yeah.
Even when we're doing it well, we're doing it badly in comparison to Jesus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We should be doing it less badly over time and slightly better over time, where we live that Christian life a little better. And, we might not notice it in ourselves that much. But like when when you go to a family wedding and then you go to another family wedding 4 years later and you haven't seen someone for 4 years in your family and you notice a change. Oh, little nephew Johnny's shot up. He's
Yeah. Yeah.
changed, hasn't he, over that 4 years? It should kind of be like that for us a bit.
Yeah.
We might not notice it day by day, but over years, we hopefully help each other to be living that Christian life better.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we're more loved by God, because we're 100% loved by him.
Mm.
But it is about living that life better, because that's the best life to live anyway. Why wouldn't we want to? I'm just whizzing through some of these things. Do you want to talk about the Holy Spirit and gifts of the Spirit, Dave, and
You
things like
talk
that?
about what
Or
you want to. I mean, we've basically got about 9 minutes before we get to about 9 o'clock
okay.
where we look to wrap up. But
So
do as
what I'm
many
going
as
to
you
say
want
here
to.
is, okay, what I'll say there is, I've talked a little bit already about God giving us gifts and
Mm,
things. So what I would say here is, um, like everyone, or like almost everyone, I imagine, we are part of natural families, aren't we? Earthly families. Mr. and Mrs. A have children who have more children, who have more children, and they're all family.
yeah,
And they're earthly families, and that's fantastic. If you're in a good family, that's great. Um, but the church family is something different in the sense that actually that family is a supernatural family. It's of God. It's not natural family. It's supernatural. It's of God. And the Bible tells us God gives us gifts, each of us in his family. And
yeah,
those gifts kind of complement each other. And this might be controversial for some listening, perhaps if they're not Christians or whatever. But I believe He gives us gifts, and I believe it for two reasons, right? Well, for three reasons actually. One, because it tells us in the Bible He gives us gifts,
yeah,
so I believe it.
yeah,
But two, I believe it because I've seen it in other people. I've seen them do supernatural things.
yeah,
And three, I've had moments of doing supernatural. Do you know what I mean? That I couldn't have done in my own
yeah,
normal skill set. So there's enough there for me to believe it. So, like, we're meant to be supernatural people, actually, who that could include maybe praying for healing and sometimes being healed. Now,
mm,
Dave, as well as I do, healing's a great mystery, and sometimes we pray for healing and it seems to work.
yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes we pray for healing and it doesn't seem to work. I've prayed for people for healing and they've died,
yeah,
and I've prayed for healing sometimes with very little belief myself almost, and
yeah,
they've got better,
yeah,
and I've been the recipient of people praying for me as well for healing, and you might say, well, is it just coincidence? But I've seen it too often for it to be coincidence.
yeah,
My Christianity, and most people I know who are Christians, their faith is grounded in the real world. We don't pretend that every time we pray for someone to heal, because we'd be lying.
yeah,
Let's just be honest. We'd be lying. But I've seen enough for me to think there must be a God then who heals. Um, and there's other spiritual gifts we could talk about as well that like are very supernatural. So where someone might come to you and they don't know you, you've never met them before, and it might, you might have something going on in your mind, like, do I take this job or not, or
mm,
do I buy this house or not, or do I even, whatever it might be, and someone who you've never met, you might be in church, you might even be in a church you don't even normally go to, you might be visiting Aunt Mabel 100 miles away and you're in her church. This is when it's really terrific, this is when I
yeah, yeah,
really like it. And someone at that church will come up to you and say, look, I know I don't know you, and this might sound stupid, but I just got a sense that you've been thinking about something, and I just had a sense of God saying, you should take that job or whatever,
yeah,
and you're like, wow, do you know what I mean? And does this happen every Sunday? Of course not. Do you know what I mean? Because we're not facing those kind of struggles every Sunday anyway, are we normally?
yeah,
But we're supernatural people, and we're very ordinary. I used to have this little joke. Well, it's not a joke, it's true. I used to say before I was a Christian, I used to like drinking cider and watching Match of the Day. And now I'm a Christian, I enjoy drinking cider and watching Match of the Day. Nothing's changed in some
yeah, yeah,
in some ways. Um, but but yeah, we are gifted with this ability through the Holy Spirit. There's a whole subject on it for another day to be supernatural family, and not just with each other, but sometimes with hear amazing stories of people bumping into someone at Sainsbury's
yeah,
and just thinking like, gosh, I feel God's telling me to tell him something, and it turns out to be on the money, perfectly accurate or accurate enough to be of God, And of course, for me, a great passion for me, I think I've already mentioned it a bit, is to be a radiant church is, I've just found the church to be genuinely, to my utter shock, if I'm honest, going back to my early and mid 20s, to be genuinely the best thing in the world. Like it's the most life-giving, like passionate, true, sometimes fun. We're allowed to have fun at church.
Yep.
Just the best place to be. The best way to live life for me began when I started living it in a church way. Do you know what I mean? The way like the Bible would talk about. And I still find that staggering. Like when I really think about it, I still think, how can that be true? But we do have the best news in the world. So a really important part for me of being a radiant church is actually it's a church that is inviting people who don't know church and don't know Jesus to say, why don't you come and have a taste of this flavour of tea that we're presenting to you? And if you don't like it, hey, that's okay. Or if you don't even want to try, that's okay. But we should be a people that are inviting people to join. Because I know it's a cliche, Dave. I've heard a million Christians say it, but when we have good news, when I became a granddad,
Yeah.
I was just I had a picture of my grandson on my phone, and I was just walking up to everyone at work, people I'd never spoken to before, but people I think were just passing it, and I was saying, "Look, this is my grandson. Look, look, look. He's called Oliver. Look at this." And because that's what good news is, and knowing Jesus is genuinely the best news anyone can ever receive.
Yeah.
And I know we don't, to use a non-biblical saying, we can lead the horse to water. If they don't take a drink, it's not our fault,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's but at least let's be asking people. That for me is a big part of being a radiant church as well.
Absolutely.
And church is meant to be. I know there's this thing called messy church. Listen, every church should be messy every week. It should be filled with people who know God, don't know God, are curious about God, dislike God, etc. Do you know what I mean? That's what church service should look like, and the messier the better. That doesn't mean it's not organised. We want to be organised, don't we? We want to have yes, it's worship now. We know who's leading the worship, blah blah blah. Who's doing the talk? Yep, we've sorted that. It's organised, but it should be full of messy people. With me and you, Dave, being at the front of the queue for being
absolutely.
messy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a radiant church. That's part of a radiant church. There's so much more we could say, but if you've never given church a try, or you tried it a while ago and church hurt you, don't give up. If you've never tried it or you got hurt once, come and give it another go. It doesn't have to be Embrace. It can be anywhere. Just find a church that is trying to be radiant. Give it another go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's me done.
That's brilliant. No, Al, that's perfect. And, I think I just want to put, Philip's question back on there. What he asked earlier, and I know you responded to that, but part of that is we want Embrace Church to be a radiant church like you've just been describing for 22 and beyond, and yes, it can be messy, and when, we get it right and get it wrong, and we get some bits really well done and some bits not so good, but we're going to try our best to be that radiant church as it's, that model in the Bible, and all those things that you've mentioned and stuff. So, if people are curious about, Embrace Church, and I have to put this, Philip's come up with some corkers tonight, so I'll put his comment on as well, just to say, with the football analogy, that the transfer window is open if you want to come and join Embrace Church. Now, we're not going to pay for you, kind of stuff, but, like you say, I don't want this to be too much of a selling job, but, like we've made a number of times tonight, honestly, you're more than welcome to come and check us out, and if you stay, brilliant. If you don't, then that's fine, again. And so if you're interested, or even if you don't want to come visit us and you just want to find out more, then message us. That might be the first kind of step, really. And so, I just want to jump on here and just kind of say, for a moment, just let me put our contact details on. that, again, we put lots more information and so on our website, Embrace Church. Obviously, you've arrived at the Facebook page as well, so please, it'd be really helpful if maybe you like that, maybe share that with your friends so you can just keep yourself up to date. Be really good if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel on just search for Embrace Church Darlington, and then that way, in the usual kind of way, just click on the little bell for notifications, and every time we upload new content, you'll get a little kind of ping. And of course, you can follow us on things like on Twitter. To be honest, the best way is Facebook. We tend to be more active on Facebook that way. So if you want to kind of just jump onto Facebook like you have been, and just kind of pop that in there as well, and just have a search for us in there. But it is just after 9, so we normally just keep to the hour or thereabouts, and so we'll kind of look to wrap things up now, really, and let me just thank you for kind of giving up your time tonight, and it's great that as always your passion, and your evangelistic kind of nature and heart and giftings have come across and so on. So it's great, and it's great that we get to do. Serve together in Embrace Church and beyond, and we get to do the life kind of stuff as well, which is all part of being that family we talked about right at the very beginning. And at the heart of all of that is that we love Jesus, and we are just, want to do as, like you said, because what Jesus has done for us and Father's done for us, that we want to worship God in all different forms. As part of that is singing, but worshiping with all the gifts that He's given us, and do that as much as we can in as many different areas. I have to say, just to kind of give a heads up for next week, the marvellous Ben Jack is coming on, and Ben, if you're catching this, because he said he would try and tune in and ahead of time as well to get a flavour of what's happening. I have to say that Mr. Alan Fraser got a bit giddy, I have to say, on a Sunday morning when I told him that you were going to join us, because he's a big fan of yours. Particularly that Ben's books that he's written a number. Ben works for The Message in Manchester, although he is all over the world. I think he was on a trip to, I think it was Ethiopia. He said he couldn't, that's why he couldn't make it tonight, and Alan stepped in last minute. I've known Ben for many years. He's a really quality fella, and so I really want to encourage you to tune in next week. Like I said earlier, set your reminders, 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night, via the Embrace Facebook page, and then catch our live stream on there. And like you said, we've got guests, a whole variety of guests coming on. It won't be an Embrace Church selling job every week, we promise. But we just want to highlight what God is doing in the area and beyond through His amazing church and the amazing people that are part of that body. All right. So thanks again, Al. You've been amazing as always. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You've been, and I think it's well done. Just to, Tony, she would say, she's a little bit biased because she's your missus, but well done, guys. I'm taking a bit of that kind of credit in there as well. I'll put this on by Tony as well. She also said that she loves the phrase radiant church as well. And clearly we want to finish with Philip, because he's had some bangers tonight in terms of his comments. He's just recommending a day trip out to the Red Cabarets, which I think sounds like a good idea to me. Because that's what families do, enjoy each other's company. Most of the time. All right, so bless you, mate. Have a good evening. Thanks for giving up your time, and thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Like I say, if you can, try and make it a live experience. If you can join us at 8 o'clock, but if you're catching up, please feel free to send us a message and get in touch anyway. See you next week for Mr. Ben Jack.